We are live. We are live. Welcome to the latest version of the Cafe Truth podcast. Florian and myself, Kevin, are your hosts today, and we're happy to be here, back in the saddle again, as we like to say. Um, you know, if you're seeing us on YouTube, we both have the same background right now, same background, and I think it's because we live
In the
in the
same
same
house.
house.
We sit in the
Um,
same seat.
It's a beautiful house. You have the exact same grand piano as I do,
Yes, I
which
was
is
practicing earlier.
expensive. Yeah, I always say if you're gonna have a house, why not have two grand pianos back to back like this?
We should buy the same house.
We should.
Like,
Yeah,
and so we could go to each other's place and we will not be lost.
right. Exactly. So this is basically, for those of you who are not on YouTube, which is probably the majority, we're basically have the same virtual background. But that said, we're still
What do you
enjoying
mean it's virtual? I
it.
cannot,
I
I
don't know what
cannot
you're talking.
go.
You
I
can't.
wanna go.
You can't.
It'll be funny if now you see someone entering the house.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah. That would be cool if they made virtual backgrounds that actually have some interaction, like some walking back.
Yeah, how come we don't?
Well,
Hey, new
hmm
business, guys.
let's get a new startup here.
I can make my hand disappear. Look,
I like it.
this is basically how truthful to what reality is.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
It's
So
just
close.
imagination. Anyway, it's a bit early for this. How are you, Kevin?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Man, it's a there's a lot going on mentally. The outer and the inner. There's a lot going on. But I can't complain. Overall
You can't
good.
complain, actually.
Yeah, I could, I guess, if I wanted to, but I think it's overall things are good. Um, I am I'm mostly just finding myself super busy and sometimes fairly stressed. I've mentioned a few times we're building this online business for online, sort of like online courses, and it's been I was just writing a friend last night. Like it's been one of the hardest projects I've ever done in my life. And it's costing me a lot of money. So it's like money that I would like to be having in my hands is flowing out with this promise of one day being profitable, but we're not there yet. And there's ups and downs. We had like 3 months of terrible traffic, which led to terrible growth, almost no growth at all. And now we're maybe starting to see it turn a corner and start to see some growth again. But it's not easy running one of the. I mean, this is a thank. Right now it feels thankless, but I know eventually it will. If I just keep to it, it'll probably pay off. But it does feel like a marathon and not a sprint. And you hear all these stories of. I was on Twitter last night. I guess now X.com, and there was a guy who started his company around like 1 year before I started this company, and he's like, and we're making 20 million in monthly revenue, and I was like,
Wow.
and he bootstrapped it. I was like, and I bootstrapped mine, and it's like such a slap in the face. I'm like, oh, I'm really not doing. This is going real slow. I mean, this guy's 20 million, and to kind of add on to that, it was a picture of him on a yacht with like 20 of his employees all in bathing suits. And there's just a bunch of hot young people just like living it up on some sort of, the Greek Isles or whatever. And I thought, wow, it's quite a kind of contrast. And I'm just trying to make sure that the bills get paid. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell right now. I'm trying to do my best to relax, and I was listening to videos last night on Wu Wei, which is kind of like the Taoist um, practice of just letting things go and just being in the flow of things. So that's kind of the update with me. How about yourself? Tell me what's going
That's
on your
interesting.
end.
Can you just precise what bootstrap mean?
Oh yeah, so bootstrap would mean we have gotten no funding, we have no VCs, we have no
Uh,
angel investors. We are basically just pulling up. It's kind of from the old term of like pulling yourself up by the bootstraps. I'm not sure what that really means, but basically just
Good
funding
work.
yourself. Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's
How
cool.
long have you been doing it?
2020 now, so we're 3 years.
Oh, that's okay. Three
And
years.
like this guy I was talking about, next year we'll be making 20 million per month. I'm
Yeah.
very sure, no doubt. I'll be on a
And
yacht.
then and then maybe someone somewhere is like, I've been doing my business for 4 years, and Kevin in 3 years he made 20 million.
Exactly. Exactly. That could be.
Yeah. You don't need to go to Greek islands. You're Greek already. So
That's true. What do I need
that's
that for? Nonsense.
you've done that already in past
Yeah,
lives.
exactly. That's why I left. Came over the yacht.
That's why you left. Yeah. Are you playing a chess game at the same time?
Am I playing a
Clicking
chess
ev-
game? Oh no,
yeah,
but I'm trying to update my
you're clicking everywhere. Are you working at the same time?
no, I'm trying to update my background image to something more cool,
No, you cannot move house.
but I gotta get out of this house.
I know.
It's too luxurious for me.
That's the thing. Well, interestingly, last night I went to see a concert at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh wow. Okay.
Very good concert. Joey Bonamassa with some symphonic orchestra.
Mm.
And I was there 2 weeks ago for another show. And I saw those nice seats in front that I always say one day I'm going to go in the nice seats in front. And then I looked online and they were like $150. I'm like, I can do $150, for this show. I really like Joey Bonamassa. I can do that. But then, and they're like by four. It's like a little, those seats at the Hollywood Bowl in the front, they're like in a little box of four people. And I think there's a table each time. But I was just by myself and I could have sat somewhere, just by myself with three other person. Maybe it's nice. I would have met someone. But the more I was looking into it, the more I was like, nah, it's not for me. It's okay. I don't need to pay this much. No, I had good seats yesterday, but for $50. But even the one at 86 or something, I was like, I can do those ones. They're a bit better. And I know it's not.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm there. Kevin, for those probably who don't know, Kevin, I, and someone else have a mini group chat, and we often talk about money and manifesting and these kind of things, and how it's all about if you first need to feel you deserve it. And I was like, well, I guess I don't feel I deserve $150 seat that I can afford.
Sure.
And yeah, so I enjoyed the show, but it's interesting. So, you just mentioning the same thing now, it doesn't feel like, even with a virtual background, it doesn't feel correct.
Were there illustrious homes behind us, you mean?
Maybe we should practice this and have virtual
Yeah, that's
backgrounds
good. I
more.
like it. There you go. You
Um,
could buy the what's that new Apple device that you put on your head, the Visual Studio or something, whatever it is.
or some VR stuff.
Yeah, the VR, and then you could just basically set that as you could live in a different house than you really live in, basically just like
Yeah, actually, maybe instead of buying $1 million house, we just buy a 200. I think it's $1,000, but
yeah,
$1,000 headset.
there you go.
Would you be as happy? Probably, right?
Be as happy. And they've been saying, I was listening to a podcast where they were saying that they made a deal with like the World Cup or maybe some big, soccer league, and you'll be able to have like those whatever $150 tickets or whatever they are, thousands of dollars, because they'll put the camera down there and everyone will be able to watch it from their headset as if they are on the ground watching the game. So so you don't need
Okay, this part is fun. This part is
that'd be cool, right?
I saw a long time ago in an exhibition in Switzerland, kind of like a science fair ish. But this is like 30 years ago, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a hologram house.
Mm.
So the house was physical. It was a little model, right? It was like a tiny. But then you had holograms, people walking around and everything. And it was supposed to be the next thing. And the idea was you could have the game in your living room,
Yeah,
and you would be watching. You can walk around. You can.
that would be cool.
Yeah, and I
I
don't know
think
what
about like
happened,
The
but
Sims, right? Like that's a game that people love to play where you're watching a screen of people walking around like a house, and people love that game. I never got into it, but that would be amazing if you were in the room with these characters that you created.
yes. But imagine watching like a tennis or something.
Yeah. Now I will say that kind of what you were mentioning earlier. So last year we went to this past year we went to the Indian Wells, you and I, for the tennis
Yes.
tournament, which we try to do every year. And the year before, for some reason, I went either a day off from you. Maybe we didn't see each other last year,
No,
2022.
I was in
You
Switzerland.
were in Switzerland. All right. So that's when I went, and I had a friend. I met a friend there who is a doctor, and who I'm pretty sure probably has about as much savings in the bank as I do, maybe less. Knowing how much he spends and how bad, like he's not known amongst his friends of being like a big saver. He likes to blow, likes to blow money. A lot of doctors do. But he makes a lot of money, so for him it's not as big of a deal. So, well, great. For me, I feel like I don't have that kind of extra money, every extra cash to throw around. But because he bought the tickets, I said, oh yeah, just get some tickets. I'll pay you back. I assumed he thought like me and was going to get the $50, $75 tickets, but he bought the $300 tickets or something. I think it was like, yeah, it was like $250 or $300 for a seat basically right behind the coaches um, of this, in the main stadium in the morning, and I was shocked. I was a little like, flustered as I'm driving there, and I'm like, how am I going to explain this to my wife? And it's blowing $300 on tickets on like court level tickets. But once I kind of got over it and I showed up, I have to say it was quite lovely. It was like, this is amazing. I mean, I'm down at the level. I'm literally sitting and can pull the hair of this player's coach, and he's yelling at her and all this stuff. And it was um, it was something that made me question and think, well, maybe I should do this more often. Like, is $300 is $300 for that experience in 1 year that costly? Not really. It's actually not that much money. I don't go
And
to sporting events very much. Maybe this
it's
is the
ten
one
bucks,
thing I do. Yeah, 10 bucks.
30
Yeah,
bucks a month, 30
exactly.
bucks a month.
And how much am I spending on wasteful Starbucks drinks? Where I could make a choice even of just if money was the thing and I really felt like this was justifiable, I could just say, well, I'm gonna make my own coffee for 30 days. That would probably pay for it. Instead of blowing $10 ish on fancy coffee drinks or whatever, or maybe 2 months. So $5 a coffee a day, 2 months. Yeah, who knows? And so it's trade-offs. But I have to say that even if I did that, and I normally, even if I saved, I wouldn't think to spend that much money, no matter what. So it is like you say, it's a mindset, and it's also a habit. And so those are strong habit energies that are hard to break if we've been training ourselves our whole lives or trained by our parents to always be this way or that way.
I think this is why they say that one of the best way to change your paradigm, whatever, is it about money, is it about
Hmm.
whatever, is to surround yourself with the people that are already there.
Yeah, really good point.
And that's when I always kind of dismissed this one because I'm like, yeah, plus it's like how we do that because usually people tend to go in the same circle. But I start to understand why actually, and because of this, because if you were spending every day with people who are used to spend 300 bucks on a ticket, every 2 weeks, then you'll be like, that's fine, and it will be fine for
Hmm.
everyone. Same thing for your wife, something, and I'm pretty sure we would get the money.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you sent me that video, which I really liked a few weeks ago in our group chat. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? It was the video about the guy who got $1 million coaching client,
Yes,
and I thought that was really transformative. It was great.
yes. I just add one more thing. The reverse of this is that what I've noticed in my life, especially when I was in Switzerland, let's say I would like to buy something. There was $800 at the time. It was a lot for me, and either it's a trip, something non important like a camera or something, but something for myself. If it's for a gift, usually I'll do it way easier. That's also another
Hmm.
strange belief, um, but if it's just it was just for me, and it happened a few times in my life where um, I don't do it. I don't buy the thing, but I think about it for maybe 3 days, 3 weeks, right? So it's there, and then I'm like, no, I know, and usually I would break the car. The car will break on me,
Mm.
um, and the cost of repair would be exactly the
Oh,
same.
funny.
And this happened a few times in my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So nowadays, when I go like this a bit more, I'm like, careful if you don't spend the money that you really want apparently to spend on this thing.
Mm.
You're gonna spend it anyway in some BS thing. So I don't have a car now, so that helps.
But there's other
But
things
still,
that come up.
yeah. And I always found it the first time, it's like, oh, this is strange. But the fourth, fifth times, I was like, this
Mm.
is weird.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that too. I can definitely relate. And that kind of
Yeah.
does get
So
back to this video you sent about Steve and I, wherein he had this, I think he went to an ayahuasca ceremony of some kind. Um, in this is his story, and he went and had this amazing realization. I haven't tried that, but it sounds interesting. And so he it comes to him that he needs to value himself and his work more, or his coaching more. He was a coach, I guess, a life coach, and he something about like he had just moved into a pretty fancy apartment, and but he was stressed by it. It was like going to cost him a lot more money per month, and he was like, "How am I going to do this?" And then during this ceremony, it comes to him, "You need to value yourself more. You are now worth $1 million a year for your coaching, not whatever you were charging. What was it, like 10,
yeah,
15 grand a month or a year even?" And so he screams it out loud, and on some sort of top of a hill or whatever. And then I don't know. And then he, it comes to him that he's going to get this coaching client in the next 5 days or something like that. That he's going to get $1 million coaching client. And this was a number that was outrageous to him, but he trusts it. And I think the next morning he said he'd talk to have breakfast with one of the other ceremony attendees, and they were talking, and he said, "I would like you to help me," and it turned out to be that the guy was ready to sign up for $1 million contract. But what I was impressed by was, especially after, so he figures out how to, eventually he gets the $1 million. Um, but what I was impressed by was like after that, he kind of felt like, it, initially I asked people, what do I do with $1 million? How do I make sure to save it and to protect it and all this stuff? And so people said, okay, do this, do that. But what came to him was, this was from the divine. This was from the universe. It was given to you so that you go out and you do more with it. You give it back. You do good with it. And it's almost as if the impression I got was like, if he disobeyed that call to take the money and spread it and start a nonprofit or whatever, if he had disobeyed that, maybe it would have been taken away from him. I don't know. There was almost this element of like, he's not in control of this. So it's almost like the call was to be open to receiving the money, and then also be open to letting go of the money. Like open hands instead of closed fists is what I got. And I was like, that's a really powerful lesson of like, I in general live my life with money closed fists, not letting any of my money get away from me. I'm always like, oh no, I'm spending another dollar here and there. But also, I don't think about what our closed fists do. They also close money from coming in, And so that was it kind of hit me on the head, that video. What was your impression from it?
yeah. I think it's really what you say. The close fit. I've read it. It's even in the secret book. All those guys would say the same thing. Um, And it's not just with money, it's, relationships, I guess health. I'm not sure, probably. It's like if you
Yeah.
think you have none, then it's not gonna happen, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a girlfriend, boyfriend, and you hold very tight on it, on her, on him, okay, maybe it works, but usually this is when conflict starts. And if you really think they're gonna leave me, usually they will leave you. I just experienced this year. It worked exactly the way I saw it coming.
Mm.
There might be another thing happening with me, but still. But then reversely, they came back exactly the way I saw them coming
Mm.
back. But also because I changed everything about how I felt about it, and I focused on myself. I focused on feeling love. I focused on like it's about. I didn't focus on having a partner anymore. I focused on feeling the love.
Mm.
And as always in the stories, as soon I was like, okay, I can let her go. I'm fine. The person is back. And I think it works with everything. It's all energy, right? I'm listening right now to this British physicist, and of course, I'm always not very good with names, but I'll find him right now, right after. He's brilliant physicist, and he's explaining just explaining the universe. What they know right now about the universe and the physical universe, what we can see of it. Same thing. It's just energy. It's just at the end. We will. I think everyone, scientist, spiritual teacher, everyone, we just say the same thing. I was watching something about the CERN in Geneva, with the particle accelerator, where they try to collide photons, I think, protons. It's just energy, it's just this, it's all about energy, and we are energy field. So at some point, maybe that's how it just works, and maybe it's way more simple than we make it to be. And maybe it's time we listen to. But it's hard to trust when someone tells you just let go of the money and it will.
Yeah, you're right. It's hard, and in some ways, you have to be ready. Um, you have to kind of prepare. I feel like you should be prepared for more than just, because letting go is like easier said than done. Um, but yeah, I think it's something that is absolutely important though, is to just be willing to try. So this is why I've been interested in that Wu Wei, which is sort of like the way it was described in one of the videos I was watching, which I really liked, was if you think about it as the tide coming and going, and sometimes the tide is coming, and then sometimes it's going, and you can make bad predictions and say the tide's coming, it will always be this way, and then it comes, and then it leaves, and you're like, oh no, the tide's leaving, it will always be this way. And that's, you think about the economy, you think about everything in life is kind of like this tide, back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes, there was a time I was thinking the other day, I was like, there was a time in my life where Alyssa and I were traveling a lot. Business was really good at the time. We were in Europe. We were lunching and dining every day. We had no kids. It was just like, it was a bountiful time for me. And then now I'm like, I have kids. My time is less. Somehow, that core business went down. Prices went up for me. It's like I'm definitely in the part of the tide where it's like low tide right now. And I'm trying to build a business in this low tide atmosphere, and then the economy is being interesting, and so it's like so I could really say, this is my whole life. This is how it will always be, and I could get into that victim story. But I know that if I go back, it wasn't always like this, and it will not always be like this. But can I just be comfortable instead of being frantic and again the victim story with that? Can I just be comfortable with, okay, right now it's low tide, it's fine. There's something nice about low tide. It makes you grateful. There's something nice about not, there's something exciting about it too. And obviously there's tides in nature are there for a reason. There's a wisdom to it all. So can you just kind of trust this wisdom and be accepting? And I think that's sometimes a good way of helping the mind calm down and maybe opening up again. We were talking about closed fists, opening those fists up again.
Yeah, and it's really just about the mind in the end. I'm going through some anxiety for like 2 weeks. And I was way better a few months ago, even though my outer situation looked worse. And now it's like my outer situation is almost better, but I have way more anxiety. And I'm like, what the but I forgot because it was going better the last few weeks outside. I kind of gave up or forgot to take care of the one part that I was taking care of a couple of months ago. So a couple of months ago, I realized, oh, it's not that I have relationship anxiety or money anxiety or whatever anxiety. I have anxiety.
Yeah.
And then I chose a subject of the day, the week, the month, the year, right? I used to be the same state for my visa. I used to be the same state because I was in Switzerland and I didn't know how to come back. I used to be in the same state. This year, I was blaming it on our relationship. It's not. And yesterday, I was, asking my friend questions that I should not ask and stuff like this. And then of course, then it's getting worse in my head. And I was thinking about this last night, and then I realized my mind is addicted to this state of arousal. Like, I don't know if it's the correct term, but like mental arousal, something. It's like this kind of pain in the head,
Right.
like my mind is addicted to it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's not I would say it's not arousal as much as it is like yeah, kind of like a needling or a probing of your. It's almost like yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the word would be, but
Like the energy is there, even my whole
yeah.
body, it's like I feel it, like I could punch someone now. Not
Mm-hmm.
really about anger, but because I have energy.
Mm-hmm.
Not a peaceful state, right? It's like, oh, I can do things. And actually, so what I would do last this spring and everything, when it was more, I would go run. I would meditate more, or like mindfulness. Basically, I would take care of the anxiety, and I think most people have some kind of anxiety. Not all of us, and so then we because some people have no issues with money, but they can't get a relationship, right? Some people can't
Totally.
get a money, and so it doesn't make sense. There's no rule that says you cannot have it all. Some people have it all,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think it's, and also my mind, because I'm lazy. Um, One of my mission quotes, um, for a long time, doing all these um, therapies and whatnot. I have a belief that we can probably solve. I want to go to the. I always think there's like one core issue that impacts everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to find it, so then I can only take care of this one, and I believe then everything else will fall into place.
Right.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it's kind of how it feels since for a long time. And I'm like, I don't think we need to address money issue, relationship issue, whatever issue we have, car issue. Yesterday I was at the concert, and there was a guy in the line in front of me showing his friends. He was about to pay something with his credit card, and he had a credit card holder. Those new fancy ones where you just click on it, the card goes out, something like this. He talked about it for like 7 minutes nonstop.
I don't
Like
even know
if he
what it
had just
is.
like if he had just bought like a private jet or something.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, for some
It's
people
a
that's
it's a credit card holder he was talking about.
yeah. It just
Funny.
It's probably like $100. He was like, do you know what? It's life warranty. I'm like, really? For like who cares? It's a credit card holder. It's like there's a little bit of mechanic in it. There's no, it's
Mm.
not. He was so excited about it, and I'm like, good for him. But it's
Yeah.
it's like we all have our things. I go to coffee shops. I know it's a long. I talk a lot there, but I was in a coffee shop the other day. Two people sit next to me, and I don't want to say lower intelligence. It's a bit. not really the way. Lower lower interest than some of our conversation. At least the time I heard them, they were mainly talking, but with a lot of passion, about the person that just left the coffee shop,
Hmm.
making fun of their clothes,
Mm.
um, and then complaining about what she had for lunch yesterday, and talking 6 minutes about what are you gonna choose in the coffee shop? What are you buying this? Maybe I'm gonna have the eggs. Maybe I'm gonna, and I'm like, yeah. Some
Hmm.
people, this is their subject, but it's almost the same kind of
Right.
function, like same engine in the back. It's let me worry about something. So you and
Mm.
I's money and me's relationships or visa or whatever it is, someone else is gonna be a card holder.
Yeah.
So I start to think it's really just either we are in the mind or either we're not.
Right. We're kind of sucked in by the spinning wheel of the mind's nonstop talk that just keeps, it's like a, it is sort of like a Ferris wheel. It just keeps spinning and spinning, and it's very, sometimes it's interesting to look at. It's got a lot of flashing lights. But the goal is to keep our attention always looking at it. And
Yes.
if one problem gets solved, you'd think, oh, that's why I was looking, because I was so needing to know if that problem is going to be solved. But then once that problem is resolved, we just keep staring and waiting for the next thing, or finding some other, thing to be upset about. I definitely have seen this, and there's times where I will be up late at night worrying about something that hasn't happened that could possibly happen but hasn't. And it's not to say, so for instance, it's like, there's stuff when you're running a business that like you should be paying attention to. There's lots of stuff, spinning plates all the time. And you could take one of those and make it into a big gigantic monster if you want to. Or you can just say, okay, well, I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that, but I can't do much right now, and maybe it's not important to do anything right now. Let me just wait until it makes sense to deal with it. And whenever I do that, it just kind of works itself out. Just, there was an issue about like some IT kind of structural stuff that I was like, I gotta fix, that was bothering me for months. I was like, I gotta move from one system to another. And I remember being up late one night, like I've got to do this. If I don't do it, and I was stressing myself out about it. And then somehow I did some meditation about it. I kind of calmed down. A few weeks went by, and then just one day it was like this. It was like the opening of the Red Sea. It was today was the day to do it, and I just started doing it without any stress. Made the transition from one system to another. Wasn't a big deal. Followed the directions, and it was done. It was like I could have just done that anyway. I didn't have to have that like multiple nights of stress. And I'm not sure they would have I'm not sure those nights of stress motivated me anymore to get that done the day that I did. It just kind of happened on its own. So it's like I could have saved a lot of energy there, and certainly a lot of more. It would have been more pleasant. So I am trying to think about like those things in life where you have these little things needling. I kind of think of it as like needling at you, because they're like kind of needling a needle pushing on your skin. And what's been helping me this year, two things have been helping me, is one, just trying to do a daily meditation practice, even if it's me thinking for 15 minutes instead of actually meditating, and just focusing on my thoughts. Just the practice of doing it has been helpful. And usually there's a moment or two where the thoughts lose their importance, and I'm in this state of like, and that's just getting there for a few seconds is actually itself valuable, because it's better than nothing that day. And then the other thing that's been helping me is I've been doing this thing called the Silva course. I don't know. It's like a Silva Mind, Ultimate Mind or something like that. And I was very resistant to this for years. I heard about it for years. It's put out by Mind Valley, but I kept, hearing about it. So I was like, let me give it a try. So I signed up for a month, and it was cool in the sense of what I like about it is it's just a way for you to meditate where you are practicing putting the problems of your day-to-day life in the hands of the divine. And for me,
What I
that's actually really nice. It was like, I got these things I'm stressed about, these long, like, you're talking about the visa or whatever it is that you're dealing with. I've got these issues in my business or my life or my kids, whatever it is. I don't know what to do with them. I can't seem to think my way through these. So let me practice a meditation that kind of helps you. There's sort of a structure to the meditation in which you visualize and put the problem into the divine, hands of the divine, and let the divine take care of it. And just by getting it out of my, just by being willing to release it to something outside of myself, has been very, very helpful. And I think there's that quote by Adyashanti from years ago. I remember where he said, "It doesn't matter what or who you surrender to. It's just important that you surrender." So in that sense of, some people think you have to surrender to God or to Jesus or to Buddha or to whatever to atheism. Doesn't matter what that thing is. That's not important. That's the action of surrendering that's important. And I really love that. And so whatever your belief system is, still important to surrender and let go. You know.
And then we go to this book I often mention, The Surrender Experiment,
Yes, indeed.
which is the same, and the guy made billions just trying to meditate.
Right.
um do you know Dolores Cannon?
I've heard the name.
I
I don't
like
know her
her.
though.
Yeah, I like her. I don't really. I kind of discovered her recently, and I need to watch something like complete or read a book or something about her. But it's interesting that it's coming into my life at this moment. So she's no longer here, but she's British. She was a hypnotherapist,
Mm.
and she hypnotized like 1,000 people more. I
Wow.
don't know. There was her life, but she realized she basically discovered about the spiritual world through the clients, what they would experience, what you would hear from them. And I guess after 1,000 people, she could make some
Hmm.
common common thread, right? This
Mm-hmm.
they all say this or they
Interesting.
all say that. So that's how she explains, and it's interesting because she looks like an old lady. She looks very
Yeah.
grounded and very certain of what she says.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she just last night I saw two videos where she was saying, um, "We are never alone. We always have a guide, at least one guide next to us. Some people have more, but at least we have one, and they choose to do that.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, with us. They don't want to."
Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting because this year I've done a lot of kind of energy work. I call it energy work, but healing. And I started 3-4 years ago here, and already there, when I started here, the first how you say practitioner told me, "Oh, you have like a lot of guides with you." And I was like, "Really?" I don't feel guided, but yes. And she gave me a precise number. And then I've done this work in Switzerland with a practitioner, and she told me the same thing. And this year I've done the same work with another practitioner in Switzerland, and she tell me the same thing. And I'm like,
Hmm.
how do they all those people say the exact same number of guides? Um, and they don't say one, they
That's
say
interesting. So they have a
yes.
specific number.
And I'm like, this is interesting. And they will say, "Oh, it's rare to have so many guides. It's this and this." And then if I had seen this video of Dolores maybe 3 years ago, I wouldn't be more skeptical. But now I'm like, that's very interesting. People are saying the same thing. Maybe this is what it is. Maybe it's not just about like angels. Again, it's energy. If it's a guide energy, if I think it's still the same thing. Uh, but yeah, this year I've done some prayers, and I would call it Jesus, which I normally never do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I was really in despair. So and it worked. It really
Nice.
worked.
Yeah.
And I remember the last time I really prayed to God was at the beginning of my current career, when you helped me telling me go to this website,
Mm.
for freelancers, blah blah blah.
Mm.
And I was in such despair. I came home and I fell on my knees. I think I told the story already. I was like, okay, I get it. I will be maybe living under a bridge or maybe in a mansion, but it's not up to me. And the next day, I
Mm.
started to make money.
Mm.
And
Amazing.
this year it was the same with relationship. But then, as soon as it starts to work, I don't trust it was this. I just go like, oh, it's me.
Yeah.
This is what I did.
You forget.
So then I constrict again, and then it hurts. This is probably what I'm experiencing right now. That's right.
Totally. I've
So
had
it's all
that
about
too.
the flow. And I wonder actually if anxiety is maybe just us blocking the flow.
Very likely.
It's kind of like you talk about the closed fist for money, but maybe we're closing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Maybe the
Absolutely. I mean,
anxiety.
you even if it's not the cause, you certainly can't be part of the flow when anxiety, it's harder to be open to that flow when you're anxious. It's just the two can't go together very easily. It's like you can't just be like, oh, I'm living according to the Tao, I'm living according to the flow. It doesn't make sense that that includes being anxious all the time. It's like, sorry, that's not how it works. If you're gonna live with the flow and trust the Tao, trust the way, you can't all, it's hard to do both. So you're right. I think there's absolutely something there, and it's it's sort of like I remember when I first learned to ski, and you're from the Alps, so you should be able to hopefully relate to this. But when I first learned to ski, I remember being stiff as a board as a kid, and just like, oh, and I would like fall a lot and stuff. And I was like, I don't know how anyone does this. And there was this moment where it just clicked, like, let go and just let your body relax. And the moment I did that, I remember just like that was the point where I started to have really a lot of fun. And I was just flying around. I mean, I still was on, the bunny hills as a kid, but I was starting to get into bigger ones. And I was just like, this is a blast. But it was because I was with the flow now. I wasn't like trying to hold and trying to control the whole experience. I was like willing to lean into the unknown a little bit. And I think it's so that just took practice, and then once you kind of figure out the groove, it's easier to get back into it. So I think this stuff is not it's not this deep dark mystery. We just have to learn. Okay, like you're saying, you have that awareness. Oh, my anxiety could be blocking me. What am I anxious about? Kind of going through some of that stuff, but also just let me remind myself to lean into the flow. I think there's a lot of value because like you can do a lot of psychological work and try to figure out why your parents da 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 and why you're so anxious and really try to obsess about the anxiety itself and try to analyze it. But there's a certain paralysis and analysis, right? Or you could just say, you know what, I'm going to put my attention on the practice of letting go, the practice of surrendering, and let me focus on that. And I think that takes care of the anxiety a lot more. You don't have to go through and figure it all out. I know a lot of people love to figure all this stuff out, but like, who cares? Just like, I think there's a part in Eckhart Tolle's book, Power of Now, where he says you sometimes just have to drop a heavy suitcase. There's no need to figure out why it's heavy. Just drop it. And so
Yeah.
that's what I've been trying to do this past year. But it's a good reminder. It's a good reminder you mentioned about um, you know, the sense of like, I don't know what you call them, like guides or um, resources spiritually that are there for us if we want.
It's hard to trust because this is not how we've been trained. And
No.
I have a feeling in 150 years, 200 years. I don't know why I say 150. Some years it will be normal.
Yeah, could be.
We'll be like, hey, help me do that and do that. So this Dolores, she says, and this is again very strange because one of my energy healers, she told me the same thing last year after my dad passed away. She said, so both of them, they say, the guide is there. They're always with you. Always, always, always. They're here to help, but you need to ask them.
Mm.
They will not interfere if you don't help, if you don't ask. But
Yeah,
if you ask, they love to do it.
that's cool.
It's like, it's like the dog that you throw
Yeah.
the wood, how do you call this? The stick.
Mm-hmm.
They love it. They don't care. They can do it day long.
Mm.
Because then, people like me, we're like, I don't want to ask too much. It's like I'm
Mm.
asking someone where it's like my old crippled neighbor to go and buy furniture for me or something. I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't want
Guilt.
to ask much. Yeah, which is probably very dumb, because if it's really like God or energy or angels, whatever, it's the same thing. There is no, I mean, if it can create, universe, it can bring me $1,000. It's
Yeah,
like nothing. There's no effort. It's maybe even like fun. I don't know.
right.
I'm sure for you, sometimes it's fun to do something for your kids. It's the same
Yeah,
thing. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
totally.
can you tie
It's
my
rewarding.
shoes? Sure. It's like there's no way to
Hmm.
tie your shoes. It's fun. I mean, that's how I see it.
Well, they
So
get to
maybe,
also, it's like you get to be part of your co-creation of experience. You're creating cool things, and it's always, it's fun. You have to kind of think about life sometimes as this. It's not always a game, and again, I don't want to assume that it's fun for everybody all the time. There's certainly people that are not having fun in this existence, but it can be fun sometimes, and even when it's hard, it can be fun. Um, and there's a certain joy in challenges and overcoming them, and playing this kind of human game. So seeing you overcome those challenges and be part of that would be a fun thing if one were a guide. So there's certainly an aspect of that where it's just like, oh, cool, we're doing something, we're moving, we're making some headway here.
yeah. And I think I've apparently all those healers have been telling me I have some kind of gift for this.
Hmm.
I actually just saw some messages from my first healer, like from 3 years ago, where she was saying the same thing that someone told me recently. I was like, oh wow, again, they always tell me the same thing, and I doubt it, right? I don't
Hmm.
believe in that. I don't think I have any gift, but it's true that everything I saw happening, relationship wise, quite the specifics,
Hmm.
details. The last 6 months happened almost to the day.
Hmm.
Correct dates, correct situation, correct.
Nice.
Very strange. It was very strange. So there was one part of me that was always sure of what would happen, and one part of me was freaking out. But I remember recently I was in Switzerland, and I'm sad, and I'm like confused and depressed, and I go to bed and I'm like, it's fine. I understand. I will never have a relationship. I will be single my whole life. And I kid you not, I heard angels
Hmm.
laugh.
Oh, funny. Wow.
I could hear them laughing, like if you're looking at a movie and you're looking at the guy that is, because you've seen the movie, you see both sides, right? You see the girlfriend or the boy.
Hmm.
You know what's gonna happen to this character.
Right.
It's kind of where, when it's like if you see your kid, complaining about something, like, fine, I will never have
Right.
dessert anymore in my life,
Yeah.
and you're laughing because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You don't make fun of them, but you just know how the
How
statement
silly it
doesn't make
is.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I looked up, because it was late, so I was not really thinking, so I just looked up and I was like, okay, fine, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm being over dramatic, and it's true. A
Yeah.
couple of months later, the situation had changed.
Amazing.
And so I maybe part of my anxiety, I'm doing my psychoanalysis at the same time. Maybe part of my current anxiety is that I stopped talking to those
Mm.
part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, because I was not feeling too good, I was more connected.
Right.
And now it's kind of like, oh, now I'm fine. I don't need you guys anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe this is not like a punishment, but maybe something in me is missing, or like
Yeah.
maybe I'm anxious to connect.
Yeah. That could be as well. Yeah. There's
Maybe
a.
our only anxiety is this. Maybe we're anxious to connect.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
like
there's
that.
there's certainly I think the way that you're talking about it is like there's certainly help out there, and if you don't get it through um, a guide, if you're not paying attention to a guide, it'll come through other forms. I remember Miguel Ruiz when I first started to read his work. There's a part I think in the Four Agreements where he says, no, this was at a podcast back in the 2008, six through eight era. I don't know, and it was when they were just doing some, new podcasts were just coming out. And so he was with his sons, I think, and there was something about like if God, there's different types of prayer. There's the prayer of the warrior and the prayer of the victim. And so when I hear this, I think to myself, oh, well, obviously the right thing to do is to practice the prayer of the warrior, and the prayer of the victim is ineffective. So that's kind of what I would assume is the right answer. And he said, it doesn't matter. Yes, the prayer of the warrior is a much more powerful prayer,
Mm.
but don't underestimate the power of the prayer of the victim. The prayer of the victim always gets an answer. And so if you are desperate in your life and you're confused and you're hopeless and you go and you say, God, help me, that's the prayer of the victim. But the prayer of the victim is always answered, and God, or whatever, the divine, will always loves to come and help you, and will always try to, always will do so. So we're always, and so yes, and then eventually you learn that there's a warrior aspect, and you learn to become more of a warrior. And then what your prayer as a warrior is more affirmative. This is the case. So I am well, and it's a lot more of that powerful nature. And so there's just different types of prayers, and sometimes we're at points in our lives where we're in that we have nothing else. We're just in that victim mode of please help me, God, and that. But it's always nice to know that there will be an answer there too, and that it's always here for us. If we're like you say, are we willing to accept it? Like you said with this video, he didn't just go out and he didn't make a million. He didn't get $1 million coaching client. And maybe we'll try to put the video in the show notes so people can see it. But he didn't
Yeah.
get that because he learned about hustle culture and said, I'm not gonna sit by there. I'm gonna go out and make $1 million, and I'm gonna talk to 10,000 people and try to get. That's not how he got there. And you could argue that if he had taken on hustle culture and tried to go out there, who knows what would happen? Probably, I would guess not as effective. But he was open. He surrendered, and he was willing to follow some directions. The help is out there if we're willing to open up and take it. And so I think that's a beautiful example of being willing to listen and not, obviously I think we could all do a lot more listening and a lot less talking, especially to ourselves.
Especially to ourselves, I like that. Yeah. So maybe I think we need to wrap it up
Mm.
because you need to be God to some
Yep,
little ones.
I do. Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
I maybe for you and I and people listening, if they want to participate, we could give ourselves like a little challenge or mission for the next couple of weeks of what giving, surrendering, or praying, or asking, or how could we
Hmm.
how could we make this something where we can help each other, you and I, but everyone else,
Yeah.
change the I mean, like an experiment, right? The book that I like, The Surrender
Yeah.
Experiment, is an experiment. And I realized that approaching it this way makes it easier to do, right? Like
Yeah.
experiment praying is more, it's easier, I think, as an approach than pray. This is an obligation, right? Or you must pray. No, just
Right.
experiment. Um,
As a
often do,
curiosity.
yeah, I often tell this to my clients, like, how about we try this? And if we don't like,
Mm.
we switch back.
Right.
And often, we don't switch back. But I realize when you have the permission, because basically when you say experiment, it means it's not for life. You don't need to change totally. You just try and see how you like it. Um, so it's easier for us to do
Mm.
it, right? If we say let's experiment. So
Yeah, and there's also a sense of like, how could a scientist ever how could a great scientist discover anything if they didn't take an open approach to science? You think about the kind of science that's done a lot of times in these big universities, and they say, well, we want to prove this. We have a theory, and then we want to prove that. And they're very stubborn about like, we got to prove it. Usually they end up with, pretty poor quality science. These are not the big breakthroughs you hear about. The big breakthroughs you hear about are often unexpected. They're often by accident. Maybe so, there's one that I remember where the scientists kind of like he had some rats. It was like a medical breakthrough, and there were some rats, and they were doing some general kind of standard experiment with them. And then he went on a trip and left them, and he comes back and sees something strange, and that was the aha moment, and it's fueled his whole career. Um, so, but he was willing to put aside his goals for a moment and just notice. And so it's like, but so that approach, I think, you can't you can't decide when that aha or that serendipity is going to happen, but you can certainly set yourself up for it. And I think in the case of life, like with relationships, if you're taking the approach of let me see what happens, how interesting this could be. What if I were to have a different approach to this? What if I'm open to trying something different? I'm open to trying something new. And whether it works or not, I'll learn something.
Yeah.
Versus, I have to succeed at this. I have to have the perfect relationship. I have to prove to the world that I'm good enough. All this nonsense that we have goal-oriented approaches to. Um, and when you have a goal-oriented approach, you don't care about, you're less interested in curiosity because you're like, this is what I want. This is all I want. Da, da, da. And I'd say even with money, like, it's like if you have this goal of like I need to be here, I should be here right now, I'm not, bad me, and then I need in a year I need to be here, and that's okay to have some general goals, but it certainly is not the flow. And what if you like I think like again that video, I keep referring to that video, he didn't have the goal of making $1 million. That goal kind of came to him, and that was almost uncomfortable for him. That amount of money was more than he wanted, but he was willing to go through it. He was willing to be curious about it. Okay, let me open to that. So, what could happen if you were to open? You open to relationships, and you're opening to experimenting with that. Your goal might be, your goal might be a decent relationship, and life might give you an exquisite relationship because you're open to either. You're not like predetermined, and maybe it didn't come out the way you thought, but it comes out better. So anyway, I like your idea of like, how do we push ourselves for this? So we make a little challenge for you and I and the listeners. Maybe
Yeah.
by the next time
And
we sit down to open and um,
maybe if I can, yeah, maybe instead of goal, we should call them directions.
yeah, okay,
Like, not directions and like, yeah, like, I want to have this, I want to go toward this amount of money is less
hmm
stressful than, even though it's
towards.
counterintuitive from what they teach you in law of attraction, where you say, I want this much.
Mm,
But maybe it's easier as well, flow wise,
yeah,
because then you can't go like, oh, I suck because I didn't make it. No, but if you're in the direction,
yeah,
oh, I'm still going into this direction.
yeah.
So actually,
I like it.
um, yeah. So what do you, how do we,
What's my
what is the
direction?
challenge? No, well, yeah. What is the challenge? So should we do like a
Hmm.
couple of prayers per week or something, or like, or do one prayer about one
I think
subject and see what
so.
happens?
That's nice. Yeah, I haven't prayed for a while.
you know. So
Well,
maybe maybe we can try, each of us,
yeah,
pray about something. We don't need to say what it is,
I like
on
it.
on one specific subject,
Sure.
and pray gently, and
Yeah.
pray. It doesn't need to be a Christian prayer, right? You can pray or ask or
Yes.
whatever, but talk to something outside us,
Right.
and then see what happens. And then next
Sure.
time we can
I like it.
say, hey, sucked or it
So
worked.
what I'll do is for me, it'll be whenever I'm feeling that anxiety, my
Yes.
my challenge to myself will be to that'll be the moment, aha, okay, now it's time to start the practice of this prayer and let something greater than myself
Yeah,
guide
what
me.
if the anxiety was just your guide
Yeah.
grabbing you by the arm and say, "Come this way," and we just resist? I
Mm-hmm.
like this idea.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. So let's go talk to our guides, see what happens.
Sounds great. Well, this has been a nice chat, and I'm gonna go play the piano right now. I got a
I need
concert
to
going
put
on after this.
I need to put some wood in this fire.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, I really like. I think this house looks great for both of us. I think
Yeah,
definitely beats the bland backgrounds that we had earlier.
exactly.
This is where we need to be.
I
So
definitely like the piano. I'd keep the piano, that's
yeah,
for sure.
definitely. It's
Yeah.
that's your style. All right, sir. Well, great chatting with you, and until next time.
Yes. Bye bye.
All right, take care.